Hi everyone, welcome back to Free Tutorial Friday. And this week I was so inspired looking back at Chris's work and his sketchbooks that I thought I would invite him into the studio. And so today, Chris Ayers is joining me. Here's his intro photo. That's Chris.
This one, not that one.
Exactly. So Chris is in the studio with me today. These are some of his first couple of books he did. Chris, maybe you could talk a little bit about how this project got started, and then we're going to look at some of Chris's sketchbooks and have a chat.
Sounds good. The Daily Zoo started off as a personal project that was really done in response to my diagnosis and treatment of cancer, acute myelogenous leukemia, which is a type of blood cancer. And after going through treatment, multiple rounds of chemotherapy and radiation, I had a stem cell transplant. And once I was kind of feeling back to normal physically, I knew that at least mentally and emotionally, I still had a bunch of recovery to do. So I wanted to give myself this gift of doing something that I've always loved to do, draw, and specifically draw animals, and just to make time to do that every day. And that's kind of where the Daily Zoo started. I started it on the 1-year anniversary of my diagnosis, and my initial goal was to do it just for a year, but it proved to be so therapeutic and rewarding that I continued doing it. Here's year 2. And now I'm in year 8, actually.
Year 8?
Year 8.
We need to get on that, don't we?
I know.
We're a little behind on our publishing schedule.
I'm quite behind on the publishing schedule.
We'll get there. We'll get there. How? I always try. I have this romantic idea of doing a sketch a day, right? But I always try, and I can never do it. I can never stick with it. So can you just tell me a little bit about that idea of, that's so rigorous to sketch every day? Do you think that I would assume that after a while it becomes habit, right? And then once it becomes habit, it becomes much easier. And you must find that the reward outweighs the, sort of effort or complication of having to try and squeeze one in every single day.
Yeah, it has become more and more challenging as I've gotten further into it for a variety of reasons. When I first started it out, I was still kind of really recovering from the cancer, and so I wasn't the activities in my quote unquote normal life were not it wasn't as busy. I just didn't have the physical energy as much for it, and I wasn't quite back to working full-time freelance, and so I had more time to kind of devote to it, and it was fresh and new, and I had all these ideas that I've always kind of wanted to try out, and so we could do that. But then in the years since, I've gotten much busier. My health has so far been improving, and it's good, so I'm thankful for that. And but it does become challenging to try and find the time to do it. But it has become sort of a habit, kind of like brushing my teeth. There's been a few days where I've almost nearly forgotten, where I've been in bed, the lights have been out, the head's been on the pillow, and then I realize, oh crap, I haven't done my animal. So then I have to get up and turn back the lights on.
Well, I applaud you you're on day 2,876 today. And that's quite an accomplishment. And everybody should sort of take a moment and let that sink in. That's a lot of days. So
it is. It's a lot of ideas. I mean, that's and not every day is a brand new animal or perhaps a brand new idea. But that's been one of the challenges too. Is now that I'm in year 8. All right, hey, I want to draw a warthog today, but I've already drawn many warthogs.
Exactly.
How can I challenge myself to come up with a new take on a warthog, or perhaps draw it in a different style or a new character?
So it's sort of shifted maybe from the habit of just doing the sketch in the first place to now being the intellectual challenge of, okay, I've drawn 50 warthogs, right, or 50 elephants. How can I make the elephant fun again, right? And so that I would imagine it's become more the intellectual challenge than, sort of just the chore, or now that it's habit.
Yeah, and that's been one of the great benefits to it. Obviously, there's the benefit of just drawing every day, and the amount of hours that I've put in just sketching and drawing is great practice. But then also the challenge of idea generation, and how do we come up with fresh ideas? And so I've through the 8 years, I've really kind of exercised that part of my brain as well, and come up with some unique little tricks that I do to help me come up with some idees.
Well, let's talk about that as we look through one of your sketchbooks. So let me take you back.
Yes.
8 years ago, 9 years ago, but 8 years ago, this is sketchbook number one.
Mm-hmm.
This is what all started. And this is when, now I know you cringe at some of the sketches that we're going to see in this book today.
I'm bearing my soul.
You're bearing your soul with us, so we get to see all of them. And so, although we're probably not going to look at all of them, but 365 in this book. So, no, I guess you didn't get to 365.
No, I think
how many in the first book?
The first year's worth included, I think, six sketchbooks. So this is the first sketchbook of year one. So it's the first 70 or so
exactly.
days.
So this is back when it was maybe not so physically, right? This was a real physical challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
You felt like that quite a bit.
Yes.
It's probably where the idea came from for that sketch. But, it's interesting, and what I think is going to be fun for us is we get to look ahead to the sketches you brought today, in addition to this one, where you're at 8 years later. And I think that's a fun thing. You mentioned it a little bit, started talking about the progression, like what you learned just from a drawing standpoint. I would imagine now it's shifted, right? Maybe early on it was the challenge, the drawing was the challenge. And now it's kind of like, it's what you draw that becomes more where you spend your time. Like you don't really have to think about the drawing as much.
Yeah. I think of it in a different way. I guess the thought process is perhaps less about some of the anatomy of an elephant, for example, and more about especially if I'm gonna kind of caricature it into a stylized cartoon elephant. I really think more about the shape design and how can I kind of push the shapes into a direction that is hopefully a little bit more interesting and perhaps something that I haven't seen before or I haven't done before myself at least.
So I noticed you used a spiral sketchbook. Is that still the case? I mean, did you like the spiral over the hardbound?
I do because it just makes, for me, I love to be able to hold the sketchbook like this. It makes it a little bit smaller rather than having it open-faced. And then the pages just tend to always lay pretty flat. And
so this is why I can't do a sketch a day, right? Because I use the hardbound sketchbook.
Yes, that's your problem.
Oh,
See,
come on.
Get a spiral sketchbook. And
had I known the secret, I could have been doing the same thing. It's just that easy, right?
Exactly.
That's
all.
My goodness. Okay, let's jump ahead. So you that was your sketchbook number one out of, I don't know, how many sketchbooks do you have now? Do you know?
I don't know, because now a lot of the last couple of years I've stopped doing it exclusively in sketchbooks. Each year I'll do a couple of sketchbooks, but then in the days between I will do them on loose drawings. And so the year one was 6 sketchbooks. I think year two was 6 or 8. Of course, it just depends on how thick those sketchbooks are.
So it's roughly, you probably have roughly 50 books worth.
Yeah. I've got one bookshelf at home that's dedicated to Daily Zoo sketchbooks, and it's getting pretty full, so I'm going to have to either end the Daily Zoo or find another bookshelf.
I'll bring a bookshelf over.
No, okay,
You're not allowed to stop.
Okay.
So you brought this little book as well. Can you talk about that one?
Yeah, this one it's obviously much smaller. I like it because I can stick it in my pocket or a coat, in my jacket pocket or something. And I usually have one of these going on in addition to the Daily Zoo stuff. For when I go traveling, and it can be traveling.
Let me break in here without hiding Chris's phone number. This is an important thing I just glanced at and I saw before you get too far ahead. Right? If you lose your sketchbook,
it's heartbreaking to an artist, right? I mean, this is part of us. This is a lot of time and effort goes into these things. And if we were to, a lot of the drawings are not necessarily worth keeping. You wouldn't mind if a lot of these drawings, if you never saw them again. But just as a whole, it's really a reflection of where you've been and some of the thoughts that you've had. This was in Italy. I was in the piazza of the Duomo in Firenze, and so today's Daily Zoo was just a sketch of drawn from life of a horse in that square. Giraffe Jedi, of course, but I like the.
I know that's coming in for the next Star Wars. Come on,
JJ,
come on, put in the Giraffe Jedi.
That's right.
Quit messing around. We've got the secret right here.
Yeah, and so it just allows me. I like to always have that option. If I was waiting in a Starbucks, waiting for a friend to show up. I had some time to kill, rather than just sit. And twiddle my thumbs, I like to be able to doodle, either from something around me or just from my imagination.
Well, it's surprising. And this is 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So this is 5 years after the first sketchbook. And, I've got to say that like the penmanship, the draftsmanship is just, it's really, really nice work, Chris. It's just it just continues to get better and better. I mean, and that's got to be part of the habit and the rhythm and the repetition.
Yeah, and just when you make time and basically build that into your schedule of I'm going to do a daily drawing, and then it gives you, because with like watercolor and some of the drawing styles, I've always kind of thought, I'd love to get better at that, but it's hard to carve out a couple of hours on a Saturday to do that. But if I'm going to do a daily sketch today and then tomorrow and then the next day, it kind of allows you to experiment a little bit more, I think.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful sketches. What's the pen you're using?
Most of these, I believe, are the High-Tech C.
Pilot.
I think it's,
Pilot High-Tech C.
Usually I like a 0.3, and then I have I've got the full range, and then if I need to get real fine, then I go to the 0.25, or if I need to thicken up some of the lines, I go with a heavier weight. Oh,
they're beautiful lines, incredible sketchbooks. So you mentioned now you're working it differently. So first, maybe you can explain to people what this is.
Sure. So in the last couple of years, I tend to draw a lot of the daily zoos on loose sheets of either cardstock or paper. And for me, that's just a way to vary up the actual surface that I'm drawing on, and experiment with different types of papers. And then it also, sometimes it's less cumbersome than drawing in a book. If you just draw on a single sheet of paper, it can just kind of physically, it frees me up a little bit. So, but the downside of doing that is that I'm accumulating a lot of drawings, a lot of loose drawings. And so if I don't, so on each day I write on the back of it what day it is, and the actual date and what day of the week and where the location of where I drew it, because otherwise I'm just going to forget. My memory is not what it once was.
Well, the beautiful thing about writing things down is you can forget.
Yes.
Because you have it written down.
Exactly.
And we all learn that, as soon as your memory starts to fade, you learn that secret. Which is write it down, and now it's okay to forget.
Wonderful. Yes, exactly. So I've created this ledger, and so I have pages and pages of the ledger. And so now it's just, I write down the actual overall day number, like today is day 2876. I also do the kind of the day number within that year, just as a way to kind of help me understand the progression of where I am in that year. Today is day 317 of year 8.
Right, because you started on April 1st?
April 1st, yeah. April Fool's Day was when I was diagnosed.
And you thought you may be a fool for trying such a big,
I know I'm a fool. Lots of people will corroborate that fact. But yeah, and then just, little... the day of the week, the actual day, the location, what animal it was. Yesterday or 2 days ago, I drew a monkey, because because I became an uncle for the first time. My sister
Nice.
gave birth.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And instantly I just thought of that. I'm a monkey's uncle. That phrase. And so then
I won't tell your sister.
No, because then it's kind of like, well, wait a second. Then I'm calling the baby, this cute little baby, a monkey.
Yeah, exactly. That's not going to go over well.
Yeah, and then
I'll coach you on that.
Okay, thank you. I need that. I need some help here. And then I just have a section for a very small section, and so I have to write very small sometimes, but just any sort of notes to provide some context of what perhaps inspired that day's sketch. And then, so when I go back to put these in the books, hopefully, I'll get to doing that, then I can refer back to some of the notes. So.
Wow, beautiful drawing, Chris. I mean, it's just
thanks.
stunning to go from what we just looked at in the, book number 1. And this is really just about 9 months ago, 8 months ago. So
yeah, and I mean it's great to feel like you're improving.
well, that and the technique, the range of styles and techniques that you've experimented with. I mean, I'm sure your visual library now has got to be so rich with not only shapes, but but techniques. Because I mean, look at the difference there of pen and marker versus colored pencil.
Yeah, and like with the goat, I was one that I took a little bit more time with. It's still just a pencil sketch. It's not inked in or colored or anything, but this pencil sketch actually took a little bit longer because I was really trying to think about the shapes and stuff and trying to draw a goat, but really kind of push, goats' eyes obviously don't extend off their head quite that far, but I just really wanting to come up with some interesting forms and like the muzzle area and the horns. Whereas this one was done very, very quickly. I think I did a little bit of light gray marker to loop.
Yeah, I see just a little,
and
super
then,
light.
And then straight in with a marker pen or a brush pen, and obviously the forms are not as tight. Not as well thought out, but it was just more about getting the idea across rather than a well-proportioned drawing.
What do you, I know sometimes they're super fast little, black and white sketch with a sharp pen inside your travel sketchbook, but then others are quite involved, with the rendering quality of this is very beautiful, and the goat, as you mentioned. I have a issue, like when I start sketching, because I'm such a designer, I really want to get in there and try to evolve a design, and so it usually is like quick thumbnails, and I can't stop there, and then I try to then go to perspective, and then I do variations on it. So it's so hard for me to get in this rhythm of one a day. I'm always like waves. I'll go for like 6 evenings in a row with pages and pages of sketches, and then I'll do nothing for a month. And so I'm just in awe of this one a day sort of rhythm. And do you find that sometimes it can be overwhelming? Like you get in and then you want to draw it again and again, and you're out of time, and you get sucked into the sketchbook?
Oh yeah, so on some days I'll hit upon an idea, and it didn't turn out quite like I wanted to, and then maybe on the next day I'll revisit that subject material and take another crack at it. Do you do that a lot, like staying with one genre, like Big Nose Man? These guys, the snouts.
The snouts.
No, I mean, just because my imagination tends to wander quite freely.
Yes.
This is a fairy berry alarm clock class. She or he has the symbols. That's going to be from the upcoming next Daily Zoo book. I love the idea of starting off with this blank piece of paper.
Do you find that now, because you've done it so often, the blank white piece of paper doesn't cause you pause at all?
Oh, sometimes it causes me pause, but it's not nearly as intimidating as maybe it was earlier in my career. Now I look at it as a thing for opportunity.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest things, I guess, that I experienced, that what keeps me coming back to drawing, I love it, but is when I can start off with a blank piece of paper, and then within 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, however long it takes, to surprise myself, to come up with something that an hour ago didn't exist, and not even consciously.
That's fantastic. I'm the same in that I don't know why I procrastinate starting the drawings, but I do. And then, but once I'm going, then it's really fun. You lose yourself. You can go to places. You can go to magical, places where these creatures exist, right? Mm-hmm. Or, I get to ride around in my own vehicles and go through all sorts of crazy environments. And when I look back on it, I don't know why it is, but I always go, why did I wait so long to get started? Because it's so much fun now that I'm doing it, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then when you look back a month later, it's really satisfying and fun to be able to flip back through a sketchbook or these random sheets and see the range of work. Mm-hmm. And there's also something about that sense of, it's very satisfying, that sense of accomplishment, to keep producing and being creative. And it's really, it is a challenge to do especially on a daily basis, but it's a challenge for anybody to just sit down and draw. So do you find your designs a lot of times in the drawing when you start, or do you always start with an idea first?
No, a lot of time I don't know what I'm going to draw. When I start moving the pencil around, I don't know what I'm going to draw. And this one I knew had a bit of an idea when I started, because it was actually inspired by an event that happened to me that day. I was out at the San Diego Wild Animal Park. Now it's called the Safari Park. And I went to the petting corral, and they had the goats, and so I was just hanging out with some of the goats, and one of them had the hiccups, and so I was petting this hiccuping goat, and so we did a hiccuping goat for the days. Do
you do a lot of research? I would imagine your anatomy skills are quite strong. Have you gone to the zoo a lot and gone to meet and talk to zookeepers and learn about the animals?
Quite a bit, and one of the nice things about having the Daily Zoo books published is that it's gotten some interest from some of the zookeepers at local California zoos, and so I've gotten some opportunities to go behind the scenes and meet some of the animals and find out a little bit more about them. These ones were done with my left hand, and so sometimes I will
I was going to say, man, I think I could do that, but
yes.
No, now I realize I still can't. So.
And so a lot of them, I was just looking at photographs of turtles, but drawing them with my left hand, and drawing them rather quick, and just trying to, and I know you've done this in the past too.
Yeah.
It just comes up, you end up with some interesting shapes that you might not normally come up with if you're drawing with the right hand. Like, for instance, this guy was drawn with the left hand, and then I came back and did an overlay, drawing it with my right hand, and being a little bit more conscious of the choices that I'm making and detailing it out. But, I don't know if I would have come up with some of these proportions and shapes if I had just started with my right
that's
hand,
exactly the same thing. Use the other side of your brain, and I had really bad carpal tunnel for a while, and I was like, oh, this sucks, because that's not something you get rid of. So I still have it occasionally, but the thing is that I was like, okay, well, I still have another hand that's good, right? So, and I still have all the knowledge in my head. Why don't I just try using the other hand, right? And what I found that was really nice, I had no expectation that the drawing should be good, because it was my non-dominant hand.
Sure.
So I let myself make these really, from a draftsman's perspective, really awful looking sketches. But they were all new shapes. Mm-hmm. And I agree. I don't think, and if you look at how loose this is, and then you look at the overlay, I don't know if it's very small on our camera today, but I think there are a lot of shapes I would have never created with my dominant hand.
Yeah.
And I think that one, easing up the pressure of always making a nice sketch.
It frees you up, yeah.
It really frees you up.
Yeah.
I really, for that alone, it's totally worth it. Mm-hmm. And then the form language you create and explore is really, I think it's totally worth it. So for everybody out there who hasn't tried that, give it a try. Mm-hmm. I think you'll find, hopefully you find some nice happy accidents.
I just saw The Hobbit last week, The Desolation of Smaug, so I was in the dragon mindset.
Mode.
Some days I have a little bit more energy and time and can take it into color. Now this one I still wouldn't consider finished. Like if I include it in a future book, I'm still going. It needs some work. It needs to have some of the details kind of pop out a little bit more. Right now it's still a little too bland, but at least it's kind of the start is there. I don't always take the sketch to what I would consider a finished level or kind of where I want to to get to.
Now, are you a purist where you won't go in and put any digital work back into that, or you will only stay with traditional, so you always have an original that's the final thing we see in the book, or do you mix your media?
I tend to mix my media. I've done a couple of shows, exhibitions recently, where they really wanted to display only original artwork, meaning only traditional artwork. And so that has kind of pushed me to finish a drawing more just completely traditional. But, I've become so kind of dependent upon the tools offered in the digital world, even just for like little tweaks and to kind of just give that little extra 10% of something there.
So I know when you were preparing for that show, the first one was in Paris, wasn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I know that you were finding yourself scrambling, going back to making things that were all traditional only.
Right.
So I know you went back in and you made some new pieces just for this show. Mm-hmm. And then this is the little book that we put together about that show and about that experience of going to Paris and showing your work there and that whole journey. So I think it's very fun.
Yeah. I mean, one of the really wonderful things about, like I said, the Daily Zoo was started as a purely personal project. I never intended on publishing it or anything, but thanks to you and Design Studio Press, I've had that opportunity. And so the other opportunities that have kind of snowballed from having my work out in book format have been great. I mean, that led to having this exhibition in Paris. I've gotten to meet a lot of people, artists all over the world, through having some of my work published, and so it's been a really great experience, and it's kind of led to many other things beyond just the actual daily sketches.
I think that's a really one, I'm super happy to help you get the stuff into print because I love the books, and a good friend of mine would love to see the work out there and let other people get inspired by it. But I think there's a great lesson there on the sort of like stick to itness of of just getting into an idea, and you love to draw animals, but then sticking with it so much to the point that you have such a momentum and you have such a body of work that now you really have the opportunity to do something with it. Whereas, many, many, many people around the world are drawing animals in sketchbooks, mm-hmm. right? But I think one of the things that makes your work so special and so fantastic is that you're so diligent and organized and do it to such a high level now with such variety that really makes it something that we can go out and publish and people get excited about that. And now, of course, you have so many great pieces to pick from that you can do a gallery show, right? Because you don't want to have, I've got 50 pieces, so I need 30 for the show. 30 out of 50 is not going to cut it, but 30 out of 500 to pick from. Now you can just really put together the absolute best stuff. And so it makes little books like this so special because they're really like a range of work and, great passages about when it was drawn and what it was for and what were you thinking about that day. Mm-hmm. So I encourage all the illustrators and designers out there it does pay dividends to stick with an idea and see it through and build a body of work. So that's your book. Fantastic mm-hmm. I love that little book, it's nice to be able to squeeze in those little nice collections of work between the bigger volumes.
Yeah.
So you're plugging away. We're going to do Daily Zoo. We're going to put the 5 years. Is that what we decided?
Instead of, I'm going to switch it up a little bit for Daily Zoo Volume 3. Instead of just the year's worth, the third year's worth of drawings, I'm going to, because I'm falling behind. So I'm going to do kind of highlights from the last 5 years of the zoo. And now that I've become a father myself, and there's been some big life changes since the beginning of the Daily Zoo. I've gotten married, I've bought a house, all these things, and that was the monkey I drew the other day when I became an uncle. So I'm gonna kind of, some of those drawings reflect just not only the growth as an artist, but then just my life experiences. So I'm going to kind of include some of that.
Great. Well, I very much look forward to the story, and again, seeing all the work and being able to collect the work in book form is just so inspirational. So in keeping with our theme from last week on getting back to firing up the old blank sketchbooks and filling them up, I hope everybody found this inspirational. I know I have. I won't draw an animal, but I'm going to go draw something. I'm doing robotic animals kind of right now, so doing lots of mechanical looking quadrupeds, but anything to just get it drawing, and it definitely sharpens up your skills. So hope everybody enjoyed that, and have a great week. Go draw something. In the description area of this video, I'll put a bunch of links to Chris's other various websites and books, etc. So please follow his work, and I think you'll find some daily inspiration. So Chris, thanks for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
And have a great week.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.